The rain-slicked streets of the city gleamed under the sodium glow of streetlights, a labyrinth of shadows where the powerful preyed on the vulnerable. Olivia Harper, the once unassailable tech heiress whose innovations had reshaped the digital world, now huddled in the dim corner of a forgotten warehouse on the industrial edge. Her wheelchair, a sleek custom model forged from her own company's carbon fiber tech, was tilted against a rusted crate, its wheels caked in mud from her desperate flight. At 32, Olivia's sharp mind had built empires, but tonight, betrayal had stripped her bare. Her legs, paralyzed from a childhood accident that no amount of fortune could reverse, betrayed her as much as the board members who turned on her. Signs of aggression marred the air, overturned furniture, shattered glass crunching underfoot, and the faint metallic tang of fear sweat lingering like a ghost. She'd hit the distress signal on her wrist device, a prototype meant for emergency alerts in smart cities, not this nightmare. It wasn't programmed for who it reached, just a raw SOS broadcasting across encrypted channels. Olivia's breath came in shallow gasps, her dark hair matted against her pale forehead, eyes wide with the terror of isolation. The men hunting her, corporate sharks in tailored suits backed by private security, had already ransacked her penthouse, demanding control of her patents. They'd whispered threats of institutionalization, of locking her away in some care facility where her voice would be silenced forever. She was alone, her family long gone to illness and time, her chosen allies bought off or intimidated. The signal pulsed out into the night, a digital cry swallowed by the storm. Miles away, in the dim haze of a roadside diner off the highway, Ethan Razor Kane nursed a black coffee that had gone cold. The Hell's Angels patch on his leather vest caught the flicker of the neon sign outside, a badge of battles fought and promises kept. At 45, Ethan was a wall of scarred muscle and quiet resolve, his face etched with lines from years on the road. Lost brothers in the war, a wife taken by cancer, and the endless grind of loyalty in a world that chewed up the honest. He'd traded the roar of fighter jets for the thunder of Harleys after coming home from overseas, founding a crew that lived by an iron code: protect the weak, honor the word, ride as one. Tonight his phone buzzed on the Formica table, an anonymous ping from a hacked channel he monitored for strays in need, old habit from running security for the vulnerable. The message was stark: coordinates, a plea for help, and a name: Olivia Harper. Ethan's jaw tightened as he scanned the details. Tech heiress? Didn't ring bells of glamour, this screamed trouble. He stepped out into the downpour, the rain drumming on his helmet like war drums. Mounting his blacked-out Indian chief, the engine growled to life, a beast awakening in the night. Headlights cut through the sheets of water as he peeled onto the interstate, the wind whipping at his jacket, carrying the scent of wet asphalt and distant thunder. Why her? Why now? But something in the signal's desperation tugged at an old scar, a promise he'd made to a fallen comrade to never turn from the call of the lost. The warehouse loomed like a forgotten relic as Ethan's bike slowed to a rumble outside. He killed the engine, the sudden silence amplifying the storm's howl. Footsteps echoed from within, harsh voices, the click of polished shoes on concrete. Olivia's heart hammered as shadows danced on the walls. They were closing in. "We know you're here, Miss Harper," one called, his tone oily with false concern. "Just sign the papers, and this all ends, for your own good." She gripped the edge of her chair, fingers white-knuckled, whispering a futile prayer to the empty air. Then the door burst open with a crash, not from her pursuers, but from the night itself. Ethan strode in like a storm front, his boots thudding against the floor, rain dripping from his broad shoulders. The intruders, 3 men in dark suits, flanked by 2 burly guards, spun toward him, surprise flickering across their faces. "Who the hell are you?" the lead one snarled, hand slipping toward a concealed holster. Ethan's eyes, steel-grey and unyielding, locked on Olivia first. She was a vision of fragility amid the chaos. Her green eyes meeting his with a mix of fear and defiance. He didn't flinch at the guns drawing on him. "Name's Ethan Kane," he said, voice low and gravel rough, like tires on gravel. "And I'm the wrong man to interrupt." The air thickened with tension, the scent of gun oil mixing with the warehouse's musty decay. One guard lunged, but Ethan moved like coiled lightning. A sidestep, a precise elbow to the jaw that dropped the man without a sound. The others hesitated, caught in the aura of this lone rider who'd answered a stranger's cry. Olivia watched, transfixed, as Ethan disarmed the second guard with a wrestler's takedown, his movements efficient, born of necessity, not rage. The suits backed away, blustering threats of lawsuits and police. But Ethan's presence filled the space, a shield of quiet menace. "You touch her again," he growled, pinning the leader against a beam, "and you'll wish for lawyers." He released him with a shove, the man crumpling. As sirens wailed in the distance, likely called by the scuffle, Ethan turned to Olivia, kneeling to her level. "You sent the signal. I'm here. What's your play?" Tears streaked her face, not from weakness but release. In that moment, amid the flashing lights of approaching emergency vehicles, something shifted. Ethan's crew, scattered across the state, would rally at his word, a brotherhood forged in fire, ready to ride for justice. But this was bigger than a brawl. It was a thread pulling at forgotten oaths. A promise to stand against the corrupt machine that crushed the innocent. Olivia nodded, her voice steady despite the tremor. "They want to erase me, my tech. It could change everything. Help me fight back." Ethan extended a hand, rough and calloused, helping her steady her chair. The rain eased to a drizzle outside, dawn's first light piercing the clouds like a hesitant hope. As they wheeled toward the door, the weight of what came next settled in. A war of wits and wills, where loyalty would be tested, secrets unearthed, and a disabled visionary might find her fiercest guardian in a biker haunted by his past. The road ahead roared with possibility, binding two souls in an unexpected alliance that would echo far beyond the city limits. The first rays of sun glinted off Ethan's bike, casting long shadows that danced like omens. Olivia gripped the armrests, her mind racing with code and contingencies, while Ethan's thoughts drifted to the patch on his vest. The angel wings, a symbol of redemption earned through sacrifice. They mounted up, her chair secured in a sidecar he'd jury-rigged on the fly, and the engine thrummed to life once more. As they vanished into the awakening streets, the warehouse stood empty, a testament to the night's turning point. But the hunters wouldn't stop. They'd mobilize their resources, their influence snaking through boardrooms and back alleys. Ethan knew it in his bones. This ride would demand everything, forging a family from strangers, honoring a promise neither had fully voiced yet. In the quiet hum of acceleration, Olivia glanced at him, the wind tousling her hair. "Why me? You don't even know me." Ethan's grip tightened on the handlebars, the leather creaking. "Because I know what it's like to be left behind, and I made a vow long ago, no one rides alone if I can help it." The city blurred past. A canvas of steel and glass giving way to open highway where the real story unfolded, not in fists or firepower, but in the unyielding bond of trust reborn. The highway stretched like a silver vein through the dawn, cutting past skeletal billboards and forgotten truck stops where the air hummed with the faint buzz of cicadas, waking to the light. Ethan's Indian chief devoured the miles, its engine a steady growl that vibrated through Olivia's bones, syncing with the rhythm of her racing thoughts. She clung to the sidecar's edge, the wind carrying the sharp tang of pine from the encroaching hills, mingling with the leather scent of Ethan's jacket. Her wheelchair, lashed securely with bungee cords scavenged from the warehouse, rocked gently with each curve, a makeshift cocoon in this improbable escape. For the first time in hours, the knot of terror in her chest loosened, replaced by a wary curiosity about the man who'd stormed into her nightmare like a force of nature. Ethan's eyes scanned the rearview mirror obsessively, the morning sun casting his profile in sharp relief, jaw set, a faint scar tracing his temple like a map of old wounds. He'd lost count of the times he'd ridden into the unknown, but this felt different, heavier, like the pull of a half-remembered oath from his days in the sand-swept deserts overseas. Back then, he'd promised a brother in arms, dying in the dust, to watch out for the ones who couldn't fight back. "Family ain't blood," the man had gasped, blood bubbling on his lips. "It's the ones you choose to carry." Ethan had carried that weight ever since, channeling it into the Hell's Angels chapter he led, a ragged band of veterans and outcasts who rode for the forgotten. Olivia's signal had pierced that veil, and now she was part of it, whether she knew it or not. They veered off the interstate onto a winding back road, gravel crunching under the tires as the city skyline faded to a hazy silhouette. Olivia broke the silence, her voice cutting through the wind like a coded transmission. "That device I used, it's not just an alert. It's linked to my network, a web of sensors that could expose corruption in real time. The board. They want it buried, because it traces their dirty deals, offshore accounts, bribes to officials. If it goes public, their empire crumbles." She paused, watching Ethan's gloved hands flex on the grips. "But you're not in this for tech, are you? What's a biker like you doing answering a stranger's cry?" He downshifted as they approached a weathered sign for Ridgeview Safe Haven, a nondescript motel tucked into the foothills, its neon vacancy sign flickering like a weary heartbeat. "Not for glory or gadgets," Ethan replied, his tone gravelly, edged with the echo of distant thunder. "For the promise. Lost a friend who built firewalls for the government. Same kind of sharks got him. Swore I'd never let it slide again." He pulled into the lot, the bike's rumble dying to a whisper as he parked beside a row of anonymous sedans. The motel was his crew's bolt hole, a place where the law's eyes didn't linger, stocked with basics and backed by eyes in the shadows. Helping Olivia transfer from the sidecar to her chair, Ethan moved with surprising gentleness, his calloused hands steady as he adjusted the footrests. The lobby smelled of stale coffee and polished wood. The clerk, a grizzled veteran with an angel's tattoo peeking from his collar, nodding without a word as Ethan slid a key across the counter. Room 7 overlooked a misty valley, the curtains drawn against prying drones. Once inside, Olivia wheeled to the window, her fingers tracing the sill as if mapping escape routes. Ethan bolted the door, then pulled out a burner phone, its screen lighting his face in blue. "Gotta call in the pack. They'll ride if I say the word." As he dialed, Olivia's mind whirred, piecing together fragments of her downfall. The board had struck at midnight, her trusted advisor, Victor Lang, a name like poison now, leading the charge. They'd frozen her assets, spread rumors of instability, painting her as a liability unfit to lead due to her disability. "It's not just money," she said softly, wheeling closer. "It's control. My father's legacy. Clean energy tech that could power cities without the greed. They twisted it into weapons, surveillance tools for the highest bidder." Ethan's call connected, voices murmuring on the line. Marcus, the wiry mechanic with a prosthetic leg from the same war. Lena, a former nurse who'd patched up the crew through too many scrapes. And Jax, the young hothead whose loyalty burned fierce. "Trouble's brewing," Ethan briefed them. Coordinates flashing across the screen. "Heiress in deep, corporate wolves at the door. We ride at dusk." Affirmatives crackled back, a chorus of engines revving in spirit. Ethan pocketed the phone, turning to Olivia with a nod. "They're family, chosen, not born. We'll get you to a secure line, hack back if needed, but first rest. Can't fight on empty." He rummaged in a duffel, producing protein bars and water, the simple act grounding her in the moment. She accepted, the wrapper crinkling like fragile trust. As the sun climbed, painting the room in golden slants, conversation flowed haltingly, her tales of boardroom battles, his of desert nights where promises were the only light. Laughter edged in, unexpected, when she quipped about his bike's antiquated roar versus her sleek prototypes. But peace was fleeting. Midday brought a shadow. Ethan's phone buzzed again, not from his crew, but an intercept from the motel's perimeter cam. A black SUV idled at the road's edge, tinted windows hiding watchful eyes. The hunters had traced the signal's echo, their reach longer than anticipated. Olivia's face paled, but Ethan's hand on her shoulder was ironclad. They come, we stand, that's the code. He stepped to the door, peering through the peephole, the air thickening with the scent of impending rain. Outside, the valley whispered warnings, leaves rustling like secrets stirring. As the SUV crept closer, tires whispering on gravel, Olivia accessed her wrist device, fingers flying over holographic keys. A counter-signal pulsed out, jamming their comms, buying time. Ethan's crew was en route, Harleys converging like a storm front, but this standoff tested the fragile bridge between them. In the quiet before the clash, Olivia met his gaze, green eyes fierce. "I never asked for a guardian angel, but thank you." Ethan grunted, a half-smile cracking his facade. "Angels got wings, we got wheels. Same difference." The SUV halted, doors opening to reveal suited figures, badges glinting, not cops, but private muscle with legal veneer. They approached cautiously, voices carrying on the wind, demands for compliance, threats veiled in procedure. Ethan cracked the door, his bulk filling the frame, voice booming like an engine rev. "She's under protection. Turn back or meet the road." Tension coiled, the valley holding its breath, as the first echoes of distant Harleys answered the call, a promise fulfilled, loyalty igniting against the encroaching dark. Olivia wheeled beside him, her tech humming in harmony with the growing thunder. This was no mere rescue. It was the spark of redemption, where a biker's oath intertwined with a visionary's fight, forging a path through corruption's maze. The sun dipped toward the horizon, casting the standoff in amber light as the riders crested the ridge, 50 strong, engines roaring in unison, a wall of leather and resolve descending to shield what mattered. In that symphony of steel and solidarity, the true ride began, binding fates in the unyielding grip of honor. The gravel lot of Ridgeview Safe Haven crackled under the weight of approaching tires, a symphony of low growls building to a crescendo that shook the valley's quiet. Ethan stood firm in the doorway, his silhouette a barrier of leather and grit, the scent of hot engine oil wafting in on the breeze. Olivia positioned her wheelchair just behind him, her fingers hovering over the wrist device's interface, ready to unleash another digital shield. The suited figures, 4 in total, their polished shoes scuffing the dirt, halted mid-stride, eyes widening at the horizon where the ridge erupted with the thunder of Harleys. 50 bikes crested the rise like a dark tide, chrome flashing in the amber light, riders leaning into the descent with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Dust billowed in their wake, carrying the faint, acrid bite of exhaust that mingled with the motel's lingering aroma of rain-soaked earth. Marcus led the pack, his prosthetic leg no hindrance, as he gunned the throttle on his customized Softail, the engine's bellow a declaration of arrival. Flanking him were Lena, her nursing kit strapped to the tank of a sleek Sportster, and Jax, the youngest, revving his Dyna with a fierce grin that belied the storm in his eyes. The crew fanned out, encircling the lot in a loose perimeter, boots planting solidly as engines cut to idles, the sudden hush amplifying the tension like a held breath. These weren't just riders, they were Ethan's chosen family, bound by oaths whispered in smoke-filled bars and sealed on rain-slicked roads, veterans who'd traded uniforms for vests, nurses who'd mended more than flesh, mechanics who'd rebuilt lives from wreckage. Their presence transformed the motel from a hideout into a fortress, the air humming with unspoken loyalty. The lead suit, a tall man with a clipboard clutched like a shield, stepped forward, his voice slicing through the quiet with practiced authority. "This is private property intervention. Miss Harper is under legal guardianship for her own protection. Stand down or face obstruction charges." His companions shifted, hands twitching toward concealed earpieces, but the words hung hollow against the wall of bikers. Ethan didn't budge, his steel-grey eyes narrowing as he sized them up. "Protection? That's a pretty word for caging the truth. She's riding with us now. Turn your suits around before this gets messier than your boardroom deals." Olivia's heart pounded, a mix of adrenaline and awe washing over her as she wheeled forward, the chair's wheels whispering over the threshold. The crew's eyes flicked to her, curious, assessing but without pity, acknowledging the fire in her gaze rather than the chair that carried her. She'd built algorithms that predicted market crashes, networks that safeguarded secrets. But this was raw human code, trust earned in the face of threat. "You can't bury this," she called out, her voice steady, amplified by the device's subtle modulator. "My tech exposes the lies. Every backroom bribe, every falsified report. The world needs to see." The suits exchanged glances, one murmuring into a comms unit, but the bikers' formation tightened, a living barrier that spoke of promises kept across decades. Jax dismounted first, his boots thudding as he flanked Ethan, young energy coiled like a spring. "Boss, we got eyes on 2 more vehicles inbound, black vans, unmarked. They're coordinating." Lena nodded from her perch, already unpacking a medical scanner, her face set in the calm of one who'd stared down worse than corporate thugs. Marcus killed his engine fully, the silence now broken only by the distant hum of those approaching threats, the valley's pines rustling as if in warning. Ethan raised a hand, signaling restraint. No charges, no chaos, just the weight of their collective stand. This was the code. Justice, not through fury, but through unyielding presence, honoring the vulnerable against the machine that ground them down. The suits hesitated, the clipboard man's facade cracking as the first van crested the ridge, its tires kicking up gravel that pattered like distant rain. But the bikers were ready, a few peeling off to block the access road, their Harleys forming a chained wall that no sedan could breach without consequence. Olivia activated her device, a soft chime echoing as it interfaced with the motel's outdated security cams, looping feeds to mask their positions. Data streams flickered in her mind's eye, patterns of pursuit, encrypted trails leading back to Victor Lang's offshore shells. "They're bluffing," she murmured to Ethan. "No real authority here, just intimidation. Stall them." Ethan stepped out fully, the door creaking behind him like an old vow resurfacing. "You heard the lady. This ends now, clean. Walk away and we forget your faces. Push it, and my crew rides the story straight to every news outlet from here to the coast." The words landed like gravel under tires, heavy with implication. The suits conferred in hushed tones, the wind carrying snippets of frustration. Curses at unforeseen variables, orders to regroup. As the vans halted at the blockade, drivers emerging with hands raised in feigned compliance, the lead suit finally nodded, backing toward his SUV. "This isn't over, Kane. You'll regret crossing paths with real power." They retreated, vehicles reversing in a plume of dust, taillights fading into the lengthening shadows. The crew erupted in low cheers, a release of tension that rippled through backslaps and nods, but Ethan's gaze remained vigilant, scanning the horizon. Olivia exhaled, wheeling into the lot, the sun's warmth touching her skin like a tentative promise. "That was close," she said, meeting the eyes of the riders one by one. Lena approached first, offering a steady hand. "Welcome to the ride, hun. We've got your back." Marcus grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "Heard the call, came running. That's how we roll. As dusk painted the sky in bruised purples, the group gathered in the motel's shadowed common area, a fire pit crackling with scavenged wood that sent sparks dancing like fleeting hopes. Maps unrolled on picnic tables, Olivia's device projecting holographic overlays of pursuit patterns, while Ethan briefed the crew on the stakes, patents twisted into tools of control, a legacy of clean innovation drowned in greed. Stories flowed with the beer and coffee, Jax's tale of dodging corporate spies in a warehouse raid, Lena's quiet recount of patching up whistleblowers left for broken. Laughter wove through the gravity, bonds forging in the glow, a family chosen amid the embers. But night brought whispers of deeper shadows. Ethan's burner buzzed with a tip from an old contact, a mole in the board's inner circle, hinting at a midnight summit where Lang planned to declare Olivia incapacitated, sealing her fate with forged documents. The air grew thick with resolve, the scent of pine and smoke underscoring the ethical crossroads. "We hit them where it hurts," Olivia proposed, her green eyes alight. "Not with force, with truth. Upload the evidence, crash their network from the inside." Ethan nodded, the scar on his temple catching the firelight. "Risky, but promises aren't kept in safety. We ride for dawn, straight to their lair." The crew dispersed to prep bikes, engines coughing to life in the cooling air, while Olivia and Ethan lingered by the pit. "You gave me a chance when no one else would," she said softly, the flames reflecting in her eyes. He shrugged, but his voice held the weight of years. "Saw myself in your fight, left behind fighting shadows, my brother. He taught me that. We carry on for the ones who can't." In that shared silence, redemption stirred, a quiet honor binding them against the corruption's tide. As the first stars pierced the velvet sky, the highway called once more, promising a clash not of fists, but of wills, a moral reckoning where loyalty's roar would drown out the lies. The engines revved in the distance, a heartbeat of courage pulling them toward the heart of the storm. The fire pit's embers glowed like dying stars in the deepening night, casting flickering shadows across the faces gathered around the weathered picnic tables. Olivia sat at the edge of the circle, her wheelchair positioned to catch the warmth, the holographic projection from her wrist device humming softly as it mapped out the board's fortified headquarters, a gleaming tower of glass and steel in the city's core, guarded by layers of digital sentinels and human watchdogs. The air carried the smoky bite of burning pine, laced with the metallic tang of cooling engines lined up like silent sentries in the lot. Ethan's crew leaned in, their leather vests creaking, eyes reflecting the blue light of the display as Olivia outlined the plan. Infiltrate not with brute force, but with a surgical strike of data, uploading irrefutable evidence of embezzlement, manipulated contracts, and the board schemed to weaponize her clean energy patents for shadowy surveillance deals. Ethan paced the perimeter, his boots crunching on fallen leaves, the weight of command settling on his broad shoulders like an old rucksack from the war. He'd seen plans like this unravel in desert ops, where one loose thread could snag the whole operation. But this felt personal, an echo of the promise he'd buried deep after his friend's last breath. "We split into waves," he said, voice low and steady, cutting through the murmurs. "Jax and Marcus take the flanks, loop the security cams with Olivia's jammer. Lena, you're on extraction, keep the van running clean. The rest ride interference if they call in reinforcements. No heroes, no blood. We expose them, then ghost." Nods rippled through the group. A silent oath renewed, the kind forged in the quiet hours before dawn raids, where loyalty was the only armor that didn't fail. Olivia's fingers danced over the holographic keys, refining the upload sequence, her green eyes sharp despite the exhaustion etching lines around them. The motel room had become a war room, scattered with empty coffee cups and scribbled notes on napkins, the faint scent of Lena's herbal tea offering a brief respite from the tension. She'd shared more in the firelight, Fragments of her past, the accident that stole her legs at 16, a drunk driver on a rain-slicked road, her father's unyielding support turning grief into innovation. "He taught me promises aren't just words," she said, glancing at Ethan. "They're code, lines that hold everything together, even when the system's crashing." He met her gaze, the scar on his temple a faint silver in the fireglow, remembering his own father's quiet vow after the war. Ride straight, son, no matter the storm. As midnight crept in, the crew dispersed to finalize prep, the clink of tools and zip of duffels filling the night. Jax cornered Ethan by the bikes, his young face taut with the fire of inexperience. "Boss, this corp world's not our turf. What if they got real heat? Feds, not just suits." Ethan's hand clamped on his shoulder, firm as the grip of handlebars on a hairpin turn. "Then we adapt. Remember why we ride, for the ones the world's forgot. Olivia's no different from that kid we pulled from the flood last spring, vulnerable but unbreakable." Jax nodded, the doubt easing into resolve, the bond of the pack tightening like chains on a custom frame. Olivia wheeled to the motel's edge, the valley below a sea of inky shadows, broken by the occasional twinkle of distant lights. The wind whispered through the pines, carrying the earthy promise of dew, and she felt the pull of vulnerability she'd long armored against with algorithms and boardroom steel. Ethan joined her, leaning against the railing, his presence a steady anchor. "Second thoughts?" he asked, the gravel in his voice softened by the night. She shook her head, hair catching the moonlight. "Just grateful. You answered a signal meant for no one. Why risk your crew for a stranger's fight?" He stared into the dark, the memory surfacing like exhaust in still air. "Because I was that stranger once. Came home from the sand with ghosts, no one to catch me. My chapter. They did. Now it's our turn to pass it on. Redemption's a road, not a destination." Dawn's first blush painted the horizon in hesitant pinks as the convoy assembled, 50 Harleys purring to life in a symphony that vibrated through the ground. Olivia transferred to a reinforced sidecar on Ethan's bike, her chair secured in the van with Lena at the wheel, the group's medic scanning for any signs of strain in the heiress's posture. The air hummed with anticipation, the scent of fresh oil and morning mist sharpening senses. Marcus revved his soft ale, prosthetic leg braced, while Jax checked the jammer rig strapped to his tank, a Frankenstein of Olivia's tech and garage ingenuity. "Coordinates locked," she called over the engines, her voice carrying like a command in the digital ether. "We breach at 0600. Upload hits their servers like a virus. Truth's our weapon." They rolled out in formation, the highway unfolding like a ribbon of fate, the rising sun glinting off chrome and windshields. Billboards blurred past, hollow ads for luxury that mocked the real stakes, and Olivia felt the rhythm of the road sync with her pulse, a chosen family enveloping her, their loyalty a counter to the isolation of her empire. Ethan glanced back, his eyes meeting hers through the visor, a silent vow exchanged, no one left behind. But as the city skyline loomed, towers piercing the sky like accusatory fingers, a shadow stirred. Scouts from Lang's network, unmarked cars peeling from side streets to tail them. Radios crackled with warnings, the crew tightening ranks, engines growling defiance. The tower's shadow fell long as they approached, security barriers rising like jaws. Olivia's device pulsed, initiating the breach, a cascade of code slipping through firewalls, exposing ledgers of deceit. Alarms wailed faintly in the distance, but the upload surged, data flooding anonymous channels, headlines brewing in the digital underbelly. Inside the van, Lena monitored vitals, her steady voice a lifeline, holding strong. Yet doubt flickered in Olivia's mind. What if the truth wasn't enough? What if corruption's roots ran deeper than code could sever? Ethan sensed it, his hand brushing hers briefly at a stoplight. "We face it together. That's the promise. The climax built as they circled the perimeter, distractions pulling guards away, feigned breakdowns, riders feigning lost tourists, while the core team infiltrated the loading dock, tension coiled like a spring, the air thick with the buzz of servers and the faint ozone of electronics. Jax's jammer hummed, looping cams in eternal stasis as Marcus covered the rear, his eyes scanning for betrayal. Olivia wheeled through the service corridors, Ethan at her side, his bulk a shield against the sterile chill. Doors hissed open to reveal server rooms aglow with blinking lights, the heart of the beast. "Now," she whispered, initiating the final push, files unraveling like threads in a corrupt tapestry. But echoes of footsteps approached. Lang's inner circle alerted too soon. Voices barked orders, the scent of panic sweat cutting through the filtered air. Ethan barred a door, his frame unyielding, while Olivia's upload ticked to completion, a digital dawn breaking. "It's done," she breathed, triumph and terror mingling. The crew converged, extraction swift, bikes roaring back to the highway as sirens swelled behind. In the rear view, the tower stood exposed, its facade cracking under the weight of revelation. Bonds forged in that rush, leaks hitting networks, allies emerging from the shadows, promised more than escape, a reckoning where honor's quiet roar outlasted greed's clamor. As the sun climbed fully, gilding the road ahead, Olivia leaned into the wind, the sidecars hum a lullaby of survival. Ethan's chapter rode strong, a phalanx against the storm, their chosen path winding toward justice's horizon. Yet whispers of retaliation lingered, Lang's desperation brewing darker plays, testing the fragile alliance in ways none anticipated. The ride continued, promises unbroken, redemption's engine fueling the miles. If this story's gripping you, hit that like button to show your support. The highway blurred into a ribbon of asphalt under the midday sun. The roar of 50 Harleys, a thunderous escort that drowned out the fading wail of sirens from the city behind. Olivia gripped the sidecar's edge, the vibration humming through her frame like a live wire, the wind whipping strands of her dark hair across her face. The air tasted of freedom, crisp with the tang of overheated engines and the faint salty bite of sweat from the riders flanking them. Ethan's Indian chief led the pack, its black frame cutting through the heat haze, while Lena's van trailed with the wheelchair secured inside, a rolling sanctuary amid the chrome phalanx. The upload had hit like a seismic wave. News feeds buzzing with leaked documents, headlines screaming of corporate fraud. Victor Lang's name splashed across every screen from coast to coast. For a fleeting hour, victory had tasted sweet, a moral dawn breaking over the greed-soaked empire. But shadows lengthened as they veered toward a secluded ranch in the foothills, Ethan's secondary safe house, a sprawling barn converted into a makeshift command post, ringed by barbed wire and overlooked by watchful pines. The crew dismounted in a cloud of dust, boots thudding on packed earth, the scent of sun-baked soil rising to meet them. Marcus killed his Softail's engine first, prosthetic leg swinging down with practiced ease, while Jax scanned the tree line, his young eyes sharp for any sign of pursuit. Lena emerged from the van, her nursing bag slung over one shoulder, checking Olivia's vitals with a gentle touch that spoke of battles won in quieter wars. "Pulse steady," she murmured, her voice a calm anchor. "But rest now. Adrenaline's a thief." Olivia nodded, transferring to her chair with Ethan's steady assistance. The rough wood of the ramp creaking under the wheels, like an old door swinging wide to refuge. Inside the barn, sunlight slanted through high slits, painting golden bars across a long oak table strewn with maps, laptops, and half-empty water bottles. The air hung heavy with the aroma of fresh-brewed coffee from a battered percolator, mingling with the earthy musk of hay bales stacked in corners. Ethan unrolled a satellite printout, his scarred fingers tracing routes that snaked through backcountry trails, away from main arteries where Lang's resources could pinch them. "The leak's viral," he said, voice gravel rough from the road's wind. "But these sharks don't drown easy. Expect pushback. Legal traps, maybe smears painting Olivia as unstable. The whole works." His steel-grey eyes met hers, holding the weight of unspoken contingency. If the board twisted the narrative, her fight could unravel into a cage of doubt. Olivia wheeled to the table's edge, her wrist device syncing with a jury-rigged projector, holographic streams flickering to life, trails of data showing Lang's countermeasures already in motion. Offshore alerts pinged, shell companies rerouting funds, and whispers of fabricated evidence surfacing in legal briefs. "He's desperate," she said, her green eyes narrowing, the faint tremor in her voice betraying the toll. "My father's old partner, Victor, was like an uncle once, promised to protect the legacy after the accident took Dad. Now he's forging docs to declare me incompetent, citing my condition as proof I can't lead." The word hung, not with self-pity, but a quiet fire, the kind that forged steel from shattered glass. The crew leaned in, faces etched with the empathy of their own scars. Marcus's lost limb a badge from the same sands Ethan had walked, Lena's steady hands hiding the grief of patients she couldn't save. Jax paced, his boots echoing off the rafters, frustration coiling like smoke. "We hit 'em hard back there, expose the rot. Why not ride straight to the press, make it stick?" Ethan's hand rose, stilling him, the gesture paternal yet firm, born of nights around campfires where hard lessons were shared like shared smokes. "Because truth's a slow burn, kid. They got lawyers who spin it into webs. We need allies. Real ones, not bought." He turned to Olivia, the barn's shadows playing across his lined face. "Your tech got us this far. What's the play? Any loose ends we can pull?" She paused, fingers hovering over the hologram, memories surfacing like ghosts in the code. A hidden server in her late father's mountain cabin, buried archives of clean deals before the corruption took root. "There's a backup vault. If we retrieve it, it proves the patents were never for surveillance, pure energy for the world, not weapons. But it's booby-trapped with old security, and Lang knows about it." The decision settled like dust after a ride, the crew's murmurs building to resolve. They'd split, a small team to the cabin under cover of dusk, the rest holding the ranch against any tales. As preparations hummed, Jax tuning jammers, Marcus reinforcing the van's panels, Lena stocking med kits, the barn filled with a rhythm of purpose, tools clinking like vows being sharpened. Olivia caught Ethan alone by the open doors, the late afternoon sun casting his silhouette long against the threshold, the distant whinny of horses in the pasture underscoring the fragile peace. "This keeps escalating," she said softly, wheeling closer. The chair's tires whispering over straw. "Your people, they're risking everything for my mess. Why not cut loose now while the heat's on them?" He leaned against the frame, arms crossed, the leather of his vest creaking like aged leather bindings. The wind carried the sweet scent of wildflowers from the fields, a brief counterpoint to the tension. "Cut loose. That's not how promises work. Made one overseas to a brother who didn't make it home. Said I'd stand for the one systems chew up. You sent that signal, pulled it right out of me. Besides," he added, a rare half-smile cracking the gravel, "your fight's got heart. Reminds me we're more than wheels and road dust." She reached out, her hand brushing his forearm. Calloused skin meeting the smooth tech of her brace, a bridge of unlikely trust. In that touch, redemption flickered, not as grand gestures but quiet honors paid in the face of unraveling odds. Dusk bled into the sky as the retrieval team rolled out. Ethan, Olivia in the sidecar, Jax on point, and Marcus covering rear, their engines a subdued growl to slip past prying eyes. The road wound upward into mist-shrouded hills, pines closing in like silent guardians, the air cooling to carry the resinous bite of evergreens. Tension coiled with each mile, rear views catching phantom shadows that dissolved into twilight tricks. At the cabin, a weathered A-frame perched on a rocky outcrop, its windows dark like unblinking eyes. The group dismounted, flashlights cutting beams through encroaching night. Olivia's device interfaced with the door's antique lock, a soft click echoing as it yielded, the interior smelling of dust and forgotten time. Stacks of files yellowed with age, a stone fireplace cold as regret. They delved in, hearts pounding to the creak of floorboards. But alarms blared suddenly. Lang's trap sprung, a silent beacon pulsing to his network. "We've got company inbound," Jax hissed, peering from a window, the distant hum of rotors slicing the night. Ethan barred the inner door, his frame a bulwark, while Olivia accessed the vault, fingers flying to extract the drives, proof of purity in a sea of deceit. "Got it," she breathed, clutching the slim case, the weight of legacy in her lap. But the rotors grew louder, spotlights piercing the canopy, casting erratic shadows that danced like accusations. The escape was chaos harnessed. Bikes revving in the clearing, Olivia secured as they tore down the trail, branches whipping like vengeful spirits. Lang's chopper pursued, its downdraft scattering leaves. But the crew's backroads knowledge prevailed, twists and hidden paths swallowing them into the dark. Back at the ranch, the full pack waited, engines idling like impatient beasts. Olivia uploaded the vault's contents, a final cascade merging with the earlier leaks, sealing the board's fate in irrefutable light. Cheers rose, but Ethan's gaze lingered on the horizon. Where retaliation's embers glowed, Lang wouldn't fade quietly. A deeper ploy brewed, one that would test loyalties to their core, pulling at the threads of chosen family and buried oaths. As stars wheeled overhead, the night whispered of trials yet to come. The road ahead, a gauntlet where honor's quiet flame would face its fiercest gale. The stars hung like scattered diamonds over the ranch, their cold light filtering through the barn's open rafters, casting ethereal patterns on the oak table where the crew huddled. Olivia's wrist device glowed faintly, its holographic display now dormant after the final upload, a torrent of untainted archives that had flooded the networks, painting Victor Lang's machinations in stark, unforgiving detail. The air inside was thick with the lingering smoke from the fire pit outside, blended with the sharp, acrid scent of cooling laptops and the earthy undertone of hay, disturbed by restless feet. Engines idled softly in the distance, a low chorus that underscored the fragile truce they'd bought with data and daring. But Ethan's instincts prickled like gravel under tires. The night felt too still, the valley's whispers carrying an edge of impending fracture. He stood at the barn's edge, arms crossed over his leather vest, the Hell's Angels patch catching a stray moonbeam like a badge of quiet defiance. The retrieval from the cabin had been a razor-edge victory, the chopper's rotors fading into echoes as backroads swallowed their trail. But victory's aftertaste was bittersweet. Olivia wheeled up beside him, the soft hum of her chair's motors a counterpoint to the night's hush, her green eyes reflecting the same wariness. The slim case of drives rested in her lap, a talisman of her father's uncorrupted vision. Clean energy blueprints that could light homes without chains, now weaponized in the public eye against the board's greed. "It's out there," she said, voice steady but laced with the tremor of exhaustion. "The world's seeing the truth. Lang's empire is crumbling, stocks tanking, regulators circling. We did it." Ethan nodded, his jaw tight, the scar on his temple a silver thread in the dimness. But his gaze fixed on the tree line, where shadows shifted unnaturally, the faint crunch of tires on distant gravel betraying the illusion of safety. "Truth's a spark, Olivia, doesn't always burn clean." He'd lived that lesson in desert outposts, where intel leaks saved lives one day and invited ambushes the next. His phone buzzed in his pocket. An encrypted ping from an old war buddy turned informant. Words stark on the screen. Lang's cornered, going nuclear. Personal hits, not corporate. Target, the weak link. Ethan's blood ran cold. In their world, weak links weren't broken. They were protected, woven tighter into the chain. The crew sensed it too, murmurs rising like steam from the percolator as Jax burst through the doors, his face flushed under the helmet hair. "Boss, perimeter cams caught movement. 3 vehicles, low profile, circling the south ridge. Not suits this time. Looks like hired ghosts, the kind that don't ask questions." Lena was already moving, her nursing bag slung ready, while Marcus hefted a shotgun, not for firing, but presence, a silent deterrent etched from his own losses. The group converged, faces illuminated by phone screens, a chosen family coalescing in the face of fracture. Olivia's mind raced, piecing patterns from the data streams. Lang's desperation manifesting as sabotage, not lawsuits. A ploy to discredit her by isolating the unstable heiress, painting the bikers as kidnappers in a twisted narrative. Ethan raised a hand, silencing the tension, his voice gravel-steady like an engine at idle. "No panic. We stand as one. That's the oath. Olivia, your techs, our eyes. Loop the feeds, bias misdirection." She nodded, fingers flying over the interface. A digital veil descending to scramble signals and ghost their positions. The barn doors creaked open wider, moonlight spilling in like a hesitant ally. As the crew fanned out, Jax and Marcus to the flanks, Lena coordinating from the van, her calm a beacon amid the storm. Ethan stayed with Olivia, his bulk a shield as they wheeled toward the central table, the air now humming with the low whine of jammers and the distant snap of branches under stealthy steps. Footsteps echoed closer, deliberate and shadowed. 5 figures emerging from the tree line, faces obscured by balaclavas, hands empty, but postures screaming intent. Not an assault, but a siege, whispers carried on the wind, offers laced with venom. "Harper, come quiet, and your ragtag saviors walk free. Lang's generous, safe house meds, no more running." The lead voice was oily, a hired echo of corporate malice, but Olivia saw through it, the ploy to fracture the bond, to make her the liability that shattered the pack. Her heart clenched, memories of isolation flooding back, the accident's aftermath, boardrooms where her chair was a punchline, her voice dismissed as delusion. But here in this ragtag circle, she was seen, not pitied. "No deal," Ethan boomed, stepping forward into the moonlight, his presence filling the night like a revving Harley. The crew closed ranks behind him, a wall of leather and resolve, engines coughing to life in the lot as backups revved in warning. "You tell Lang the game's over. His lies are out, and we're the ones who rode them into the light. She stays with family, chosen, unbreakable." The words hung heavy, a vow pulled from the depths of his past, echoing the dying breath of his brother in arms. Carry the lost, no matter the cost. The intruders hesitated, the valley holding its breath, pines rustling like applause for the stand. One shifted, pulling a phone. Murmuring coordinates, backup called, but Olivia's jammer pulsed, severing the link in a cascade of static. The figures backed away, melting into shadows as distant sirens wailed, not for them, but the unraveling scandal drawing real authorities. Lang's ploy crumbled, exposed in the data's unrelenting glare, his network fracturing under whistleblower calls and federal probes. As dawn crept over the hills, gilding the ranch in soft gold, the crew exhaled, backslaps and nods weaving relief into renewed bonds. Olivia met Ethan's eyes, gratitude blooming like wildflowers in the fields. "You didn't just save me, you gave me a ride worth taking." Promises kept, shadows faced. He helped her toward the bikes, the morning air fresh with dew and possibility. The highway calling once more. The chapter closed not in triumph's roar, but quiet honor, a disabled visionary and a scarred rider, their alliance a testament to redemption's road, where loyalty outlasted corruption's grasp. Lang's fall echoed in headlines, justice, morale and poetic, forged by a family chosen in the night. Engines thrummed to life, carrying them forward, legacies intertwined in the endless miles. Thank you for riding along on this journey of promises and loyalty. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more tales of redemption and chosen family. We'd love to have you along for the next ride.